Good enough isn't good enough. You can always be better. There's a lot of room on the table, man.
You cannot train to become a tier 1 operator. You're born to do it.
I remember standing on the square with 70 other recruits, and I was a skinny little kid thinking, I'm out my depth.
You have to be really, really fit to get into pass selection. But that's not enough. You also got to be really robust, not just physically, but mentally robust.
Like, I can really be better. I can be better at a lot of things that I never even cared about before. Let's hammer down. Set the example.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers. Today's video, as always, was sponsored by Huel. I'm drinking Huel Black Edition, which has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein and slow release carbs to make sure that I can stay satiated and proteined up whilst I make these documentaries. If you want to find out more about these, go to the link in the description. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video. At what point do you decide I want to do the Special Forces? Like,
whenever the film Never Ending Story came out, that's a focal point because I went to the cinema to watch Never Ending Story, and then that evening I watched the movie Who Dares Wins with Lewis Collins, and that's when I was like, I want to join the SAS. So whenever, so that's I think it's 1987.
And what captured you?
It's just the whole. At the end of the movie, there's like a big hostage rescue mission. And it's about an SAS guy who's a badass and goes undercover with these terrorists. And at the end, there's a hostage rescue, and he's like the hero. And that, when I was looking at going, I want to do. And at that time as well, as it still is, the SAS always in the newspapers doing in it a lot then. So I was like, yeah, I want to join the SAS. And but a lot of people kind of, I said it to family and stuff, but again, lots of people would say they join the SAS. But in my mind and my heart, I wanted to. And as I got a bit older, that stayed in here rather than saying, I want to join the SAS, because people would just laugh at me. They were laughing at me for saying I'm going to join the parachute regiment, let alone if I said, I'm going to get in the SAS. So in my heart of hearts, I really wanted to join the SAS from a young age. And that was always kind of my eye on the prize, if you like. All the time from being getting into the parachute regiment, huge milestone for me. And it was, again, beating my critics, being my own, strangely, again, kind of this contradiction of that part of me knew I could do it. And part of me knew I was going to get in the SAS even. But the other half of me said, how are you going to, the human side, if you think, was saying, you couldn't do that. So it's proven to myself when I got to the parachute regiment, great milestone, and now it's like focus on the next thing, which I was going to do the SAS selection. Then I had this great platoon sergeant who was ex-Pathfinders, and he told me about the Pathfinders and things, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go to Pathfinders first, and then go to the SAS, and that's what happened.
And then you go through the process. What was that like? And then eventually reaching that goal.
I passed selection the third time. You're allowed to, I believe it's 2 times, but if you get injured or reasons out of your control, then you're allowed to come back. That's how it used to be. And so on the third time I passed selection, and even that was like a lucky escape, because after the first Gulf War in 2003, I'd saw action for the first time, and kind of lots of people were leaving the military to earn a lot of money on the security circuit, and I saw that opportunity, and I signed the paperwork to get out of the military. So I had like 10 to 12 months to get out. But in that time, I did a parachute exercise, and on that exercise, there was a guy from a friend of mine from the parachute regiment who was on my first selection, who'd passed, and he didn't know anyone. So me and him were hanging around together. And it was just, and he was saying, what are you up to? Are you going to go back on selection? I was like, nah, I'm going to get out and earn loads of money. And he's like, mate, you have to give it one more go. You have to give it another chance. And I was like, and he was telling me some of the things he was up to, and I was like, that does sound really good. And back then it was kind of easier to get on selection. Now there's lots of courses and things you have to do, but back then it was just before it changed, where you could pretty much put in for selection and go straight on it. And so I saw the commanding, or my officer commanding, and said, look, I'll sign back onto the military as long as you let me go on SAS selection on the first opportunity. And he was like, okay. But then he added a bit of pressure, saying, if you fail this time, you're not going to come back to Pathfinders. You're going to go back to the parachute regiment, which would have been because I'd been in Pathfinders a long time, so it wouldn't have been very nice for me. So I was like, okay, it's like SAS or bust, and went on selection and passed. And when I, even now when I passed, it was such a good feeling to get into the SAS. The SAS is a famous, for good reason. Everyone in the world pretty much knows what the SAS is, or most people do anyway. So to get into that unit, and there's not many serving members, is such an honor. And I was kind of buzzing. And even when I think back, I'm like, sometimes I can't believe I got into the SAS. And then I'm in the SAS. And so it was to go from being, when people doubt that you'd even get into the army, to be able to prove them wrong, even though they wouldn't know, that not only did I get into the army, but I got into the parachute regiment. Not only did I serve in the parachute regiment, but I served in the Pathfinder platoon. Not only did I serve in the Pathfinder platoon, but I got into 22nd Specialised Service Regiment. And then the rest flows on.
We mentioned briefly the 1% better every day. I don't think, again, it's not people want to take medicine that fixes them in the next day. What they don't want to do is take a bitter pill every single day. And 1% better, it requires that. Like it's hard work, but it's a little thing, but it adds up over time.
It does. And a lot of that, it's a consistency. Like, am I better than I was the day before? Yeah, because naturally I have more experience. I have more experience today than I did yesterday. Have I been living in this vessel for one day longer? Yeah, I naturally have more experience. So it could be as simple as, did I work out today? Yep. Did I do one extra rep? Mm-hmm. Did I do more weight than I did last week? Yeah, 3 pounds. Not a big jump, just enough. Just enough to keep myself on track. Am I still pushing forward? Am I still applying steady pressure every single day? Yeah, I haven't let myself go. You haven't missed a workout? Nope. You haven't missed a 20-minute walk? Nope. Why? Because I said I wouldn't. It doesn't have to be this. I don't have to climb Mount Everest. I just need to wake up every single day with a reason to swing my feet out of bed and pop up quick. Like, I have to have a reason. Why? Because I want to be better than I was yesterday. Because the people that I support deserve it. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm an imperfect creature. Ask anybody, they'll tell you. The only difference between me and you is I'm actively trying to get better. A lot of people just want to sit there like, it's good enough. I said the same thing, dude. Until you realize good enough isn't good enough. You can always be better. There's a lot of room on the table, man. Like, I can really be better. I can be better at a lot of things that I never even cared about before. Like, let's hammer down. Let's set the example. It goes back to the Be a Pro thing. Like, that 1% better. That's how the professionals do it. How you want to get better at anything. Do it 10 minutes every day, 365 days a year. At the end of that year, you'll be better than 80% of the population that does that one thing. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, that's the truth. It does not take an exuberant amount of time or attention. It just takes steady pressure. And a lot of times, instead of doing it, you just want to scroll through IG for an extra 10 minutes. Well, you don't have to. You could learn a new skill. You could polish on the existing skill. You could have a better conversation with your kids, your wife, grandmother, your mother, whatever. A lot of people just don't want to do it. It sounds too hard. It's like, I don't have the time for that. You don't have the time for that? You're not making the time for that. Same people that, they want to lose weight, but they don't want to diet. They'll go through 40 years of being overweight, and then all of a sudden you see them, and you're like, what happened to you? And you're like, yeah, I finally did this diet, and I finally just stuck with it. And he's like, come to think of it, I never really tried before. I kind of just stopped eating the lean cuisines, and I gained 40 pounds back. Now what? I don't change my diet. I stick to it, and I bring my food with me. I drink my water, blah, blah, blah. So you just adopted the fact this is what it's going to take. Yeah, it takes what it takes. You just didn't think you'd be able to do it, so you just stopped trying. If you make it digestible and not easy, but maintainable, people will get on board with it. And a lot of times they need to see someone show them, like, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It does not have to be so complicated that you couldn't figure this out. Tell everybody, do a 20-minute walk every night after dinner. Do it for a week. Do it for 2 weeks. Then do it for a month. If you're not losing weight, if you're not doing this, your diet is really, really terrible, introduce another walk. I know you feel better off the walk. I know you do. I've never had any like, man, I did those 20-minute walks for a week. I really feel like shit. Like, no, you don't. I've never had anybody say that. I've had thousands of people call me, like, changed my life. Me too. That's why I keep saying it. Like, I don't get paid every time somebody does a 20-minute walk. I only do it because I know how much it's helped me. Like, without those 20-minute walks, man, I'm not kidding you, I would be screwed right now. And I just don't want to see people suffer. I've been there. I've been the only guy on my island alone. I've been there. And I hate when it happens to people, because it doesn't have to be. Like, we can get through this thing together, but not if you're not willing to help yourself. If you're going to lay down in the fetal position and cry to me about how hard your life is, it's not going to work. You got to be open, honest, and we have to be willing to put in some work. I'm not going to make it impossible, but got to make it work.
Flip into the other end of the spectrum, the being elite. What did it take for you to be the best?
For me, it was identifying a role model, someone I thought was the best, and then changing that role model every time I thought I was catching them. So you set forth this mentor, whatever he's going to be. For me, it was my father originally. And then I didn't have a mentor I really wanted to be like until probably my third deployment. And I got a guy named Barrett that came in, and larger than life to me. I worshiped this dude. He was everything I ever wanted to be, and everything that came out of his mouth was like the gospel. Everything he said, everything he did, the clothes he wore, just everything about him was all I ever wanted to be like. And then I move on to a different team, and there's another figurehead equal to that. I'll just chase this dude. Start climbing up the ladder, and there's another guy. It's like chasing that guy, chasing that guy, chasing this guy. And it's really just surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like, that are positive role models, that help you up the ladder. Very few times have I ever seen people at a high level who stand on top of the ladder with their foot and won't let you come up another rung. I've only seen mentors in my life that are always doing this. They're always trying to pull you up, and the really good ones want you to be better than they were. It's like, all I've got to do is really show up and just put out. Just try as hard as I can. At the end of the day, if you've exhausted all the resources, and I can look at myself in the mirror and go, it's not for lack of effort. I tried. You are going to mess up. You are going to fail. You're going to make stupid errors. Everybody does. Well, how do you come back from it? Just try not to make the same ones again. And unfortunately, guys do make the same ones. I've definitely made the same mistakes over and over and over. And now I'm sitting back here as the whole picture unfolds going, that's part of my story. I'm not designed to be perfect. I never was. I'm kind of flawed from the very beginning. But that's some of the beautiful parts of my story, is I have learned. And now that I am here, instead of jumping on a pedestal, like, look how great I am, like, look how flawed I am. Look at all the things I accomplished. What I see is huge flaws. All of you guys play me on a video game and tell me how great I am. Like, I don't say that. Nobody else we've worked with ever said that. Nothing was ever good enough. We're always trying to be better. We're always trying to look for the flaws and try to make course corrections. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it, is most of the people that are at a super high level don't realize they're at a high level until it's over. The entire time. And that's the thing I love the most about that particular organization in the teams, is they get you to sacrifice. They get you to drop everything else like it doesn't matter, because you love that organization so much. You will spend the entire time of your career chasing something that never exists. And about the halfway mark, around the 10-year mark, you realize the perfection you're chasing, you're never going to find. You spend the next 10 years accepting it. I don't care. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to be, there's no number one seed at this team. There's no starting quarterback role in this team. There just isn't. We're all equal here. And all I really want to do is play the game again. I just want to play the game again tomorrow. Play the game again tomorrow. And that's the thing that's beautiful about it, is once you realize you're never going to catch it, the thing you're chasing, you're never going to hold in your hand, and you fucking do it anyway. That's the beautiful thing about it. Sacrifice it all for one more chance to play the game, knowing I can never take it with me. I think that's what they do better than most organizations, is they tell you that. Like, you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to achieve it, and you ain't never going to take it with you. Still do it anyway. That's a power that it's hard to, it's like loyalty. It's hard to define, but easy to recognize. Like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, those dudes would do anything to be a part of that. No different than a professional athlete. How far are you willing to go? The whole way. I go the whole way right now. That's why I miss it. It's the best time of my life.
Today's episode, as always, was powered by Huel. This stuff has been absolutely crucial to my training and the world record I just broke, the world's heaviest marathon, where I carried 220 pounds for 28 miles. Yes, I achieved it, guys. It is done. This is what I was drinking, Huel Black Edition. It has 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals and slow release carbs, and it's what I use in my training all the time. But don't just take my word for it. People like the hardest geezer ran across Africa drinking this stuff. It's absolutely amazing. And if you want to get exclusive offers and deals, go to the link in the description and you can find out more about their other products like their daily greens and their meals, which I eat every single lunchtime. Thank you to Huel for sponsoring the video, and let's dive back into the episode. From the outside, special forces, tier 1 operators is like real life superheroes, real life, modern day warriors. From the outside, and it really is that. And I'm curious as to what does it take to be in the special forces.
So when I'm going to say special forces, we'll just say SAS, SBS.
Yeah.
And tier 1 US units. Because special forces now is just a huge organism. But it takes, I think, and this is just the opinion of Christian Craighead, is that you cannot train to become a tier 1 operator. You're born to do it. Now, and what do I mean by that is, you have to have this certain mindset, physicality, everything to be able to do it. No one, I completely deny. If someone said, you know what, I'm super fit, super motivated, I'm going to get into the SAS. Maybe you will, but if you do, that means you always could have got in it. So you had that set up. There's some people who, no matter how hard they try, no matter what they do, no matter how qualified they are, no matter how good people think they are, they just can't do it. And the thing, it's a theory shared by a very close friend of mine, who I was in training with in junior para and another unit, and then the SAS, and that was his thing, is you're born to be in the SAS, and I completely agree with that. It's like you're that set up. If you want to do it, you train, you work hard, and then when it comes to selection or being selected, is again a lot of time I'm quite flippant about saying about being fit. You have to be really, really fit to get into past selection. But that's not enough. It's just a tiny bit of it, because everyone knows someone, everyone who's done selection knows someone from their old unit who, Jonesy could put 65 pounds on his back and run 10 miles every single day. And he could do that or whatever. And he goes on selection and he lasts a week. Can't do it. And all these, or people get further on, and everyone's the people. There's lots of people go, oh, he would definitely get in the SAS, and there's other people who think, oh, I don't know how he's going to pass, and they pass. But there's all these little hidden talents, as the closet weirdos, or the closet ones who are running 10 miles at weekends when everyone's going, oh, what do you do? Oh, I didn't do anything. But really, they're nerding out over military stuff, or they're going running and stuff, and hiking, and so there's that X factor. But you got to be really fit. But you also got to be really robust, not just physically, but mentally robust. Because that's the other thing. It's just like the daunting thought of what's ahead of you, which people want to, circling back to what I said earlier, create these monsters that don't exist, and the monster eats them all up. And then when they face it, they either defeat it or, say, go home. So that's, and so that might be, you're born to do it, and we could do some they should do some studies. I wanted to do one, but I thought about it about a week before I got out. It was too late to do like a study on, types of people in the SES and SBS. But you got to be fit, motivated, robust, and being able to follow instructions and to assimilate information quickly. Because if we could have our way, selection would be like 2 or 3 years. So you could get all this information, but it's compressed into 6 months. So if you can't pick something up quickly, you're out there.
If you was to take like an absolute physical phenom, like somebody, once in a blue moon kind of guy, the fittest of the fit, and he wasn't to make it, and I know this probably happens all the time.
Yeah.
What would be the biggest thing that was missing from the package that he had to make it into
He didn't really want it. He was probably, people like that, one of the things that they're in love with the idea of being in the SES, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
completely.
they want to be in the SES. They want to be able to tell all their family, friends, swag around, I'm SES. They don't really want to pay the price for it.
Yeah.
And then people don't realize what the price is, and then they turn up and go, yeah, no thanks. It's like when, like, there's guys who could physically easy. It all comes down to if you had to do it, and you don't have to do it, and that's what makes selection hard. Is that you don't have to do it. So when you put a rucksack on your back, and you get given a location where you're going to go, and you look and you see, if you can see, because the mist might be in, but if you can see it, it might be even worse. You see the distance of where you can see that big hill over there. Yeah, you're going to the one over that mountain. I should say. See that mountain in the distance? Yeah. Well, you're going to the one on the other side of that where you can't see. Off you pop. And that's what freak people out. And then they go, it's not that. And if they had to, if you had held a gun to the head and say, if you don't walk there now in 4 kilometers an hour, I'm going to kill your family. I bet they'd be able to do it. It's going untapping that resource. But you've got to be, and that's the trick of selection, is you've got to be able to do it. You've got to want to do it. And if you don't want it, you're not going to get it.
And not to minimize the aspect of the special forces and like, how, brave you guys have to be and the decisions you have to make, and, the position you guys are going into is insane. But that lesson's applicable to everything, like to success in life in general. Like so many people, they're so invested in the idea of success, driving the flash car, being wealthy, all that kind of stuff. But the journey is just something they're not willing to take at all.
Everything has a price. That's the thing, is if you want to be, and that's the trouble what we have now is like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And then they're crying because in 3 weeks they're not making 100,000 quid a month. And you're like, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of failures, a lot of test and adjust. And then maybe in 10 years time, you might be making that much money. They don't want the bits in between, the work and like whatever job that is, whatever role it is, you're absolutely right.
Did you enjoy the hard work and the graft, like the difficulty of it? That's something that you...
No one really enjoys it. They might, like, people will say, oh yeah, it was good doing that, but they don't. It was good being part of a system. But here's the thing. So you want to go in the SES. There's always exceptions, but as a general rule, if you're going to go in the SES, whatever unit you're from, whether it be infantry, support arms, whatever, typically the guy going for SES selection is the fittest, the strongest, the keenest, the one who excels in everything, who gets good reports all the time and is like golden balls. That's the common thing, and that's great. So you go on selection, you work extremely hard, you pass this course, which just has such a high failure rate, and now you're in the SES. But here's something you didn't think about, and no one tells anyone, is you've now joined a unit where every single member is that guy, where you were the top of your 30 guys in your platoon. Now you're in a squadron or regiment where every single man was that guy. So something to think about.
Let's talk to that for a second, because I think that's something that people don't think about. Then you're in the top 0.001% or something, and surrounded by how many people actually make through selection?
This is this is the number system I work. It might be outdated now, but for around about 200 volunteers, 8 is the average pass. Sometimes more people pass, sometimes less people. But from 200, that to me, it might have changed, but was the planning is 200 will start selection, 8 people will go to the squadrons.
And then you're sat there, you arrive with these guys who are just like you, the best of the best of the best. What's that like? Is that a moment where you sort of, that hits you and you realize that?
No, I think you don't realize it. I think a lot of people don't realize that. But it's good to be around people who are of similar mind. But again, but it's the same thing. Everyone's different. And one thing is, it's just my theory, is even if you're in a combat unit, and it doesn't matter if it's Tier 1 Special Forces or combat, I think it splits into categories as well. Because one thing I think I saw a lot, and as much as my theory, especially in high performing units, you have sheepdogs and wolves. So you're all working to the same goal. So you all got a common aim. But some of the people around you are sheepdogs. They can produce the goods if they have to, and they're there and they're selected, and that's why they're there. But there's some people around you who are wolves who have been trained into sheepdogs, and they're the different people. And again, my theory is that a lot of parachute regiment soldiers in the SAS are wolves. Wolves turn into sheepdogs, and but it's like that in lots of different units. I'm not just talking about the SAS. I'm talking about lots of high performing units, and people will know what I'm talking about. Some people are different, and it falls into to make it really. I'm trying to make it as simple and as easy to explain as possible. It's just like there's people who are sheepdogs, and there's people who are wolves.
What's the characteristics that separate them?
I think the wolves are the ones that will do things when they need to be done without orders, off their own back, and with total aggression and commitment. And the sheepdogs will do it if they have to, but won't do it unless the shepherd tells them to do it.
Selection is like a race of attrition, and you generally start with around 150 to 170. In the first 3 weeks, you're probably down to around 50, and then you go out on the next phase, and you could come back with, say, 20, 25 people, which is probably a good course. And then the rest of it's just training to get you ready to join the squadron. I think for me, like, I enjoyed selection. Like, there wasn't one day when I woke up and just went that I didn't want to be here. It was more just about just proving to myself that I could get through each day. And I kind of found enjoyment in seeing people fall off. I think a lot of people do, as in, not in a bad way, right? I didn't rub anyone's face in it. But when you're doing things that are difficult and you've got an easy option to get out, like you can literally VW and, you don't hand a number in. You literally VW and you can just walk off and pack your kit and go. And you'll be in a warm shower and bath and, whatever food you want. So it's easy to quit, which makes it, the majority of people do quit. I think when that happens, like you see their weakness, and it puts you up a level, right? It puts you up a level of, puts your strength up a little bit. So yeah, I enjoyed those 6 months on selection.
I eventually joined just after 17, and when I joined the parachute regiment, and that's when my whole life changed then. I realised I'd done the right thing. I knew this is where I needed to be, and I was now looking at real men, not little troublemakers from where I was, that I thought was a big fish and I wasn't. These were real men, been to war just after the Falklands, respected, and I remember looking at them thinking, that's who I want to be. I want to be remembered and respected for something good like these people. And that was I've got to do this moment.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, is that initial moment, because you've described it a few times. I've seen in previous interviews about when you got there, it was like these real men. Like, so what was that moment like? How did that change your sort of outlook and mindset?
You know, as a young kid, I think I was, I don't want to call it fearless, I'd actually call it stupid. Nothing bothered me. You know, getting into a fight didn't bother me, nothing. I wasn't scared of anything or anybody. I'd fight people twice my age, 3 times my age, not a problem. But then I realised now I'm stepping into a real man's world. This is an old nonsense bullshit world. And that happened immediately. And I remember standing on a square with 70 other recruits, and I was one of the youngest, and definitely the skinniest, or one of the skinniest. There's 2 of us that are quite skinny. And I remember looking down the line, and it was blokes with big chests, hairy chests, tattoos, moustache, you know, and I was like, wow. And I was a skinny little kid thinking, I'm out my depth. There's no way I'm going to be able to compete with these people. And that was in my mindset. And I was already starting to, you know, mentally lose it and thinking, I ain't going to do it. Then I just thought, I'm here. I'm not going back to that lifestyle. I've got to make this work. And as the weeks went by, the numbers got fewer and I was still there. And every day I looked down the line and more people went, these big guys were going, it gave me strength and it gave me belief. I thought, I can do this. I'm going to do this. And I started to not get cocky, I got confident and believed in myself. And every day was difficult, every day was different and hard, but I just thought, I can do this. And it went on and went on and went on, and the numbers got fewer and fewer and fewer, and I was still there. And it was hard, you know, and every day I felt like throwing my hand in, but the thing that stopped me doing it was going back to the lifestyle and the way I was. I couldn't do it. There was only one way I was going to go back to that, is if they said to me, you have failed, you're out. Until they tell me that, I'm going to keep going. And it was hard work. And at the end of it, there was 7 of us originals left, and I was the champion recruit. I was actually the best recruit for that troop. They were all great guys, don't get me wrong, but I just shone a little bit more than, and I think, to be fair, I had an advantage having been in cadets. I knew some of the basic skills, so that helped me along the way. But on the physical side of it, it was hard. It was really hard. I was up against big, hard people. What is that, to describe the training? What's it like? The test at the start, how's that going through that? It was difficult, you know, running with boots, running with weights, being in the gym 40, 50 minutes of non-stop, pushing myself. I'd boxed a lot, so I was used to, you know, cardio work, but this was relentless. It was non-stop. There was no breaks, no breaks. You've been screamed at, shouted at, and you're being pushed really through your limits. And obviously the reasons for it are needed. It has to be done, and that's what they did. And yeah, I struggled with it. It was really tough. And then the sort of endurance stuff was something I wasn't really used to. You know, where in civilianization do you run around the mountains with a house on your back? You don't. And it was building me up for the right reasons to, you know, get ready for potentially joining the battalion and going to war should it happen. And that was what it was all about. So that was difficult, getting used to that. But, you know, I embraced it. I kind of enjoyed it. Every time I did it, I felt like I'd achieved something. And, you know, I've been so used in my school career eating one word: fail. Every exam, fail, fail. When I did P Company as a young 17-year-old kid, it was the first time I'd really had the word Billingham, pass. And it was like, wow, I've just won the lottery. And I'm looking around the room of 40 of us that have attempted these tests, and I was one of 11 that got passed. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I really started believing in myself then. I thought, right, I can do this. And it just, so though going through it was hard, and every day, every run, although I was fit, I was saying to myself, I was kind of, the little angel was saying, throw the towel in and give up. The devil was going, run through the trees, just keep going, you know, and the devil drove me forward on this one and got me through to where I needed to be.